lift our hands in the sanctuary. Lagos, stand!
Before you keep scrolling, stop right here. Because the story I am about to tell you today is one of the most shocking, most heartbreaking, and most thought-provoking stories you will ever hear on this channel. This story is based on a true-life event, but the names used are fictional. So I need you to listen from the very beginning, because everything in this story connects. Every single detail matters. Now, I want you to think for a moment. Think about the most trusted, most admired person in your church. The one everybody points to. The one the pastor praises from the pulpit. The one the mothers say, "See that person. That is how I want my child to live." Now, imagine finding out that same person has been living a completely different life behind closed doors. A life that nobody, not the pastor, not even the mothers, not even the person closest to them, had any idea about. That is exactly what this story is about. Today, I am going to take you into the life of a young woman named Miranda. A woman who was two completely different people, one in the light of day and another under the cover of night. Make yourself comfortable. This story will take every bit of your attention. Are you ready? Good. Let us begin. In a church somewhere in Lagos, a big, full, living, breathing church where the music fills the entire street on Sunday morning, there was a choir, and in that choir stood Miranda. Miranda was in her mid-20s, tall, naturally beautiful, with a warm smile that made strangers feel like they had known her for years. She always came to church dressed modestly, simple, clean, elegant, nothing loud, nothing that drew the wrong attention. Just a young woman who looked peaceful and put together. And her voice? When Miranda opened her mouth to sing, the whole church held its breath. She sang with her eyes closed sometimes, completely lost in the music, and everyone watching her believed with their whole heart that this was a woman who truly, deeply loved God. The older women in the church adored her. They would nudge each other during service and whisper, "You see that girl? That is how I want my daughter to be." Such a good child, respectful, quiet, no trouble at all. The younger girls looked up to Miranda and wanted to be just like her. The single men in the congregation admired her from a respectful distance, the kind of admiration that said, "This is a woman you bring home to your mother, not a woman you play with." And the pastor, Pastor Emmanuel, a man who had led that congregation for over 20 years and had learned not to be too quick to praise anyone, he made Miranda an exception. He praised her from the pulpit. "Young women," he would say, his deep voice rolling over the congregation, "look at Miranda. Look at how she carries herself, how she serves, how she conducts herself. That is what a virtuous woman looks like." And the whole church would nod in agreement. Miranda knew exactly what everyone thought of her. And that was precisely the point. Here is what nobody in that church knew. Every Sunday morning, Miranda would wake up, have her bath, put on her modest church clothes, pick up her Bible, and walk into service looking like the picture of a godly young woman. But on Friday and Saturday nights, a very different Miranda was getting ready in that same room. She would sit in front of her mirror and slowly, carefully, deliberately begin to transform herself. She would open a large makeup bag with several shades of foundation different from her natural tone, heavy contouring, dramatic eye makeup, bold lip colors, false eyelashes, and highlighter designed to make her glow under nightclub lights. She would sit there for over an hour, building a face that looked nothing like the Miranda who stood in that choir. Different hair, completely different clothes. A completely different woman. When she stood up from that mirror, even someone who saw her every Sunday would walk past her on the street and not recognize her. And that was exactly what she intended. Miranda moved through Lagos nightlife with a quiet confidence. She knew which clubs to go to, which lounges hosted the kind of men she was looking for. She knew the bouncers by name. She had regular customers, wealthy men who called on her specifically, who paid very well. None of them knew her real name. None of them knew she was a university student. None of them had any idea that on Sunday morning, this same woman would be standing in a church choir, singing her heart out, while the pastor used her as an example for the congregation. She had been living this double life for years, and in all that time, not one person in her church world had connected the dots. Now, I know what you are asking. How does a choir girl end up living this kind of life? The answer is not simple, but it is very human. Miranda grew up in what Nigerians call an average family. Not starving, but certainly not comfortable. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi, were hardworking and God-fearing. Her father worked a regular job. Her mother sold goods in the market. Together, they pushed hard to see their children through primary school and secondary school. But when it came to university, the money simply was not there. Miranda was the firstborn. After her came her brother Daniel, and then her younger sister Precious. Both had finished secondary school by the time Miranda was in her early 20s, and all three of them were sitting at home waiting for an opportunity that was not coming. No degrees, no capital, no connections, just closed door after closed door. Miranda felt the weight of that every single day. She applied for jobs. She was turned away. She tried again. She was turned away again. Then one day, her childhood friend Tolu came to visit. Tolu was the kind of girl who always had money. New clothes, new phone, always looking expensive. Miranda had noticed, but never asked. But that day, Tolu looked at the stress on Miranda's face and lowered her voice. "Miranda," she said slowly, "I know you are struggling. Lagos men have money, big money, and they are willing to spend it on the right kind of company. All you have to do is look good and be available." Miranda shook her head immediately. "No, that is not for me." Tolu shrugged and left, and Miranda went back to her prayers and her job search. But then a week later, her mother came home crying. The landlord wanted the rent, and they did not have it. Miranda sat with her mother that night, watching this strong, faithful woman cry quietly in the corner of the room, and something inside her broke completely. She picked up her phone and called Tolu. "Tell me more," she said. It started slowly, the way most dangerous things do. A party here, a drink there, a conversation with a wealthy man who liked the company of a pretty girl. Small payments at first, then bigger ones. Miranda was disciplined and smart about it. She never went to clubs in her own neighborhood, never attended parties where anyone from her church might appear, never used her real name in those spaces. She built a wall between her two worlds and guarded it fiercely. And the money started flowing. She paid the rent. She told her parents it was money from an online skill she had been learning, graphic design, she said. Her parents were grateful and asked no further questions. They trusted their daughter. They had raised her in the church. She was their good girl. Miranda then wrote her JAMB examination and got admitted into Lagos State University. The following year, with the money she had been carefully saving, she helped her brother Daniel gain admission into a polytechnic to study engineering, and her younger sister Precious got into a college of education. For the first time in years, the Adeyemi family could breathe. They moved to a better apartment. A broken refrigerator was replaced. School fees were paid. Mrs. Adeyemi's market business got a boost. Mr. Adeyemi could finally look his landlord in the eye. And it was all because of Miranda. Not a single one of them knew how. Years passed. Miranda was already in her final year in school. Daniel was excelling. Precious was thriving. Miranda told herself, as she had been telling herself since the beginning, that this was temporary, that she was doing what she had to do, that soon she would save enough, start a real business, and walk away from the nightlife forever. She had been telling herself that for so long she had almost started to believe it. Then came Raymond. Raymond Okafor was in his mid-30s, settled, mature, full of life. He had built one of Lagos's most successful logistics companies, drove a car that turned heads, and lived in one of the finest neighborhoods in the city. But for all of his success, Raymond was not a man who let his money speak louder than his character. He was kind. He was patient. He was respectful to everyone around him, whether it was the pastor or the security guard at the church gate. He was, in the truest sense of the word, a gentleman. He had been attending Miranda's church for about a year after transferring from another parish. He did not come to the church to show off or to network. He came because he genuinely believed. And somewhere in that congregation, he had noticed Miranda. Not with lust, with genuine admiration. He watched how she carried herself, how she treated people, how she sang with such sincerity. And slowly, quietly, over many months, that admiration grew into something more. One Sunday after service, he walked up to her. "Good afternoon," he said, smiling. "I am Raymond. I have been wanting to introduce myself for a while." Miranda looked up at him.
She had noticed Raymond, of course. "Miranda," she replied, shaking his hand. And that was the beginning. Raymond was not rushed. He was consistent and respectful, calling at reasonable hours, asking about her studies, sharing things about himself with an openness that felt rare. He listened when she spoke. He remembered the small things she mentioned weeks earlier. And Miranda, without planning it, found herself falling. Not the way you fall for someone in a noisy club where everything feels exciting but means nothing by morning. This was different. This was the quiet, steady, deep kind of falling. The kind where one day you look up and realize this person has become the most important thing in your world. She started looking forward to his calls. She smiled every time his name appeared on her screen.
After many months of courtship, Raymond went to speak to the pastor. In a traditional Nigerian Christian setting, this means something very specific. A man does not approach the pastor unless he is serious, unless he is thinking about marriage. Pastor Emmanuel was pleased. Two of his most admirable young members wanting to build a life together. He gave his blessing gladly. Raymond asked Miranda to marry him. She said yes. And deep inside Miranda, something shifted. Something came alive that she had thought was gone forever. Hope. Real, warm, genuine hope. This good, successful, faithful man had looked at her and decided she was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. That night, she sat alone in her room and made a decision she had been postponing for years. She was done. Done with the clubs, the parties, the men, the money, the double life. Done. She had enough savings to start a business, enough to be stable. She did not need this anymore. She had a reason now. She had Raymond. She made her final calls that night, told certain people she was no longer available, blocked numbers, deleted contacts, closed doors she had kept open for far too long. And for the first time in years, she felt like she could truly breathe. The months that followed were the happiest Miranda had known in a very long time. The families were brought together for the formal introduction, that beautiful Nigerian tradition where a man brings his people to meet the family of the woman he intends to marry. The Okafor family arrived at the Adeyemi home, dressed well, bearing gifts, carrying themselves with a warmth and dignity that suggested Raymond had been raised right. The Adeyemi family received them with all the love and hospitality they could offer. Miranda watched from across the room as Raymond's mother held her mother's hands and smiled. She watched her father and Raymond's father speaking quietly and respectfully. She watched Daniel, now a confident young man in his final year, and Precious, bright and glowing, laughing and mingling with Raymond's cousins. Her heart was so full, it almost hurts.
A wedding date was chosen. A venue was booked. The cake was ordered. Miranda went for her first dress fitting, stood in front of a mirror in white, and cried the good kind of crying, the overwhelmed with gratitude kind. Her mother stood behind her, hands pressed together, whispering a prayer of thanks. "My daughter," her mother said softly, "you have made this family so proud." Miranda smiled at her mother's reflection, and in that smile was joy, so much joy, but also, buried very deep, a shadow she had chosen to ignore, a part of her past she had decided would stay buried forever. She pushed it down. She was done with that life. Nobody needed to know. The past was the past. She deserved this happiness. She was safe. Or so she believed. It was a Tuesday evening, 1 month before the wedding. Miranda was sitting at her desk, going over wedding planning notes, fabric swatches for the bridesmaids' dresses spread out in front of her. She was relaxed, at peace, comparing 2 shades of color in the fading afternoon light. Her phone buzzed. She reached for it without looking, expecting Raymond or her mother or one of her bridesmaids. The message was from an unknown number she had never seen before. 5 words. How would your husband-to-be feel when he sees this? Miranda frowned. She almost dismissed it. Strange numbers sent random messages in Lagos every day. But something about those words made her pause. Something cold moved through her chest. Then her phone buzzed again, and again, and again. Photos arriving one after another, rapidly from that same unknown number. With a hand that had begun to tremble, Miranda opened the first one, and her world collapsed. The photograph showed a young woman in a nightclub, dancing in a way that left nothing to the imagination. Despite the heavy makeup, despite the completely different hair and clothes, Miranda knew immediately, with his sickening certainty, who that woman was. It was her. She opened the next photo, and the next, image after image of her in clubs, in lounges, in the spaces she had believed were sealed away from her real life forever. Someone had been watching her. Someone had been documenting her other world with a patience and thoroughness that was absolutely terrifying. And then came the final images, the ones that were so much worse than party photos. Images from inside hotel rooms. Images that, if sent to anyone who knew Miranda, would not just destroy her reputation, they would destroy everything she had ever built. Miranda put the phone face down on the desk. She sat completely still.
Then she picked it up again and read the final message that had arrived after all the photographs. 200 million naira. You have 2 weeks. Pay, or these photos and videos go to your husband-to-be, your pastor, your church, your parents, your siblings, and every social media platform we can reach. Do not test us. Miranda stared at those words. 200 million naira. She could not breathe. She felt the walls of her room pressing in on her. The fabric swatches for the bridesmaids' dresses were still spread innocently across her desk, completely unbothered by the catastrophe that had just walked into the room. 1,000 thoughts flooded her mind at once. She thought of Raymond, his kind, trusting, open face. She thought about what would happen to that face when he received those images. She thought about his mother, who had held her mother's hands and smiled. She thought about Pastor Emmanuel praising her from the pulpit, all those years of praise. She thought about the mothers who had pointed at her as an example for their daughters. She thought about her own mother, standing behind her in that bridal shop, crying happy tears, whispering thank you to God. She thought about her father, who had believed every word she told him. She thought about Daniel and Precious, her siblings, whose education, whose entire future, had been funded by the very thing that was now threatening to destroy everything. There was no safe path forward. If she paid, where would she even get 200 million naira? And even if she could, what guarantee was there that this person would stop? Blackmailers do not retire when they are paid. They come back. They always come back because now they know you will pay. If she told Raymond the truth, would he be able to survive it? Would his love be strong enough, or would it break him? If she said nothing and waited, she risked everything exploding publicly, without warning, without any chance to explain herself. Every direction she looked, there was pain.
Miranda sat alone in her room for a very long time. And then, because she did not know what else to do, because the weight of it was too enormous to carry alone, she did something she never imagined she would do. She found an anonymous online platform, a place where people share their stories and ask for help without revealing their identity. And with shaking hands and burning eyes, she began to type. "I need help," she wrote. "I am in trouble and I cannot tell anyone in my real life because if I do, everything falls apart. So I am coming to strangers because I do not know where else to turn." She typed out everything: the choir, the church, the pastor's praise, her family's financial struggle, Tolu and how it all started, the years of living 2 lives, Raymond and the love she had found in him, the engagement, the introduction of families, the wedding just 1 month away. And then the message, the photographs, the demand. She ended with the question that was burning a hole through her chest. What do I do? If I pay, will they really stop? If I tell my husband-to-be, will he leave me? If I do nothing and the photos go out, is that not even worse? I am so scared. Please, someone tell me what to do. She posted it. And then she sat in the ruins of everything she had built, in the silence of her room, and she waited. And that, my people, is where we leave Miranda tonight. Sitting alone, 1 month before her wedding, with photographs in a stranger's hands, with a demand she cannot meet, with a secret she carried for years, and now that secret has turned into a weapon, pointed directly at everything she loves. I want you to think about this for a moment. Really think about it. Miranda did not start this journey because she was wicked or careless or without values. She started it because she loved her family and could not bear to watch them suffer. She started it because a door opened when every other door was closed, and she walked through it, telling herself it was temporary, telling herself she would stop soon, until soon became years, and years brought her to this moment.
This is a story about choices, about secrets, about the weight of a double life and a day the weight becomes too much to carry. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. What do you think Miranda should do? Should she pay the blackmailer? Should she tell Raymond the truth before the photos go out? Should she go to the police? And here is the deeper question. If you were Raymond and you found out everything, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, share it. Because somewhere out there, someone is living a version of this story right now. And maybe hearing it told out loud will help them find the courage to make a better choice. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories.